So, where do we go from here is the title of my sermon. It was also a title of a letter I wrote to the congregation more than a year ago. And you may be wondering why the church treasurer is standing in the pulpit. Fear not. I've not come to ask for more money. Unless you insist, of course. But today I wear a different hat. I have been asked to report on the progress of the Daisy and William Myers Memorial Committee, a project of this church of which some of you may not be aware of. You have heard our church's statement of equity and justice. We repent from the injustice of the world throughout history and seek to redress the harm done. So how are we redressing the harm done? Some of us in the adult forum at the end of 2022 and into 2023 have had an experience that calls us to further action regarding the issue of racism in our society. We have read and discussed the book White Too Long by Robert P. Jones. Chapter 7 of that book, titled Reckoning, Toward Responsibility and Repair, poses this question: what are you going to do to contribute to racial justice and healing in your local congregation and community? It occurred to me that perhaps we could do something around the Daisy Myers story. As I think about this challenge, I note the following. The book challenges us to follow up with some action. We are a white Christian church. We are located in Levittown. Levittown is the scene of a notorious racist event, the integration of Levittown by the Myers family. Today, there are no known monuments of remembrance of this event. I sent an email to J.D. Mullane, a reporter for the Bucks County Courier-Times, who was a friend of Daisy Myers, asking him if he knew of one. He replied, "There aren't any that I know." When she came back to Bristol Township, then Mayor Sam Fenton named a beautiful blue spruce for her on the lawn of the municipal building. For years, it was the official township Christmas tree, but it was taken down years ago and hasn't been replaced. I have an update to that story. Just within the last month, I learned that the tree was actually toppled by a storm in January of 2017. And Bristol Township announced last month that they had replaced the tree. 7 years. Well, better late than never, I guess. I was moved to suggest that UCC form a committee with the purpose of creating a monument to commemorate the Levittown racism story so that we do not forget and we can learn from it. And I received permission from the church council to proceed. The philosopher George Santayana said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." I believe that UCC should take the lead, as we are a church in Levittown located less than 3 miles from the house that the Myers bought at 43 Deep Green Lane. If you are not familiar with the Myers story, I'll describe it a little bit, give you a little synopsis of it right now. It began on the afternoon of August 13th, 1957, when the Levittown Times, which is the precursor to the Bucks County Courier-Times, reported the first Negro family to buy a Levittown home had moved into a house in the Dogwood Hollow section that morning. The family included William Myers, his wife, Daisy, and their 3 small children. They were the first Negro family because Bill Levitt would not sell to blacks, believing that if he sold to blacks, no whites would buy his house. An existing original owner sold the house to the Myers. The Myers family faced months of harassment and violence before security forces, the Pennsylvania State Police, intervened to protect the family, leading Daisy to be dubbed the Rosa Parks of the North. To give you a little bit more sense of what it was like back then, I would like to play a short video from YouTube. While Viren is keying up that video, I will describe what you are about to see. The video is titled Crisis in Levittown. You will see one white woman speaking about her feelings and thoughts about the Myers family moving into Levittown as the first black family. This is just a snippet. You can also view the full video on YouTube, which it runs about a half an hour, where several people speak about their feelings and thoughts, both pro and con. So some people were willing to speak on the record in favor of the Myers moving in. Comment and analysis is provided by Professor Dan Dodson, the director of the Center for Human Relations and Community Studies in the School of Education at New York University. So now if we can play the video and make sure closed captioning is on.
1957, Levittown, Pennsylvania attracted international attention when violence erupted as William Myers, Jr. and his family moved into the 3-bedroom house at Daffodil and Deep Green Lanes. In almost all respects, the Myers family is close to the Levittown norm. They have 3 small children, the youngest only 1 month old. Myers served for 2.5 years in the Army and was discharged as a staff sergeant. He works as a laboratory technician and is studying for a degree as an electrical engineer. His wife, Daisy, is a college graduate. The Myers home is modestly furnished, and their late model family car was bought on time. They are very close to the Levittown norm, except in one respect. William Myers, Jr. and his family are Negroes in an all-white community. Levittown reacted in a number of ways to the new arrivals. There were several hundred who congregated on the street in front of the Myers house, and there were those among them who felt strongly enough to throw a rock through the picture window. But there was another large group who were repelled by this kind of behavior and organized to help Levittown accept its first Negro neighbors. Why did you select Levittown to live?
We were looking for a place to buy a home. We looked at Levittown, and we liked the homes here. We liked the advantages that Levittown seemed to offer in comparison to other cities. And we understood that it was going to be all white, and we were very happy to buy a home here.
How about your children? Have you talked with them about the Myers?
We have tried to keep the discussions away from the children. I feel that it's something that we adults should solve without bringing the children into it any more than we have to. We're doing it for the children, but I don't feel that they are old enough to understand the problem as it is.
Do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
Definitely.
In what way?
I think that, well, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any number.
Can you give a basis for that judgment?
Yes, we used to live in Washington, D.C., and we saw a very good example of that there.
The repetition of an experience that was distasteful. Is there to be no escape from living near Negroes? And what of the dream of middle-class respectability? If a Negro family can afford what you can afford, how do you justify your feeling of superiority? The illogic of one's own position becomes apparent, and in self-justification, the old tribal myths are invoked. What other objections, aside from the effect on property values, do you have against the Myers?
The whole thing centers around the word integration. Well, as Mr. Myers said, because his home has been anything but peaceful since he moved in. He's got 3 children, and evidently he feels that they will be accepted socially. And I don't feel that they ever will be. But the whole trouble with this integration business is that in the end, it probably will end up with mixing socially. And you will have Well, I think their aim is mixed marriages and becoming equal with the whites.
Thank you. Well, during the video, you heard Professor Dodson state there were a large group who were repelled by this kind of behavior and organized to help Levittown accept its first Negro neighbors. However, he does not give any details about this group. During our research, we discovered that this group was led by the first pastor of this church, then known as the Evangelical and Reformed Church of the Reformation, which was later shortened to Church of the Reformation. It's a little bit easier to say. Reverend Ray Harwick was the chair of the Levittown Citizens Committee, a non-denominational group formed in response to the turmoil. The group denounced mob violence, racial bigotry, and supported the Myers' right to live where they wished. In addition, according to Linda Manzo, the folks from Reformation who participated in the support of the Myers by standing with them at their home were Bob Bill, John Miles, and Jack Quinn, all men of integrity. So here we have a great legacy to build upon. Where are we today? The Daisy and William Myers Memorial Committee was formed in February of 2023 and held its first meeting on March 14th of 2023. Since that time, the committee has developed a list of possible memorial options, taken a tour of Levittown, thanks to Bob Gallagher, who has lived here forever, and showed us all the possible different memorial locations that might be available. Some of us visited the Pennsylvania State Museum in Harrisburg to view the exhibit, A Place for All, 3 Stories of Integration in Pennsylvania. One of the 3 stories is about the Myers family. We have begun the process of applying for a nonprofit 501c3 status. We have added to the initial UCC committee membership. The first, thanks to Steve Schnurr, who pursued her diligently, we added Linda Myers, who was the daughter of the Daisy and Bill Myers and was only 4 months old at the time. She led us to Katie and Nick Wechsler. Katie was 13, Nick was 10, and who with their parents, Lou and Bee Wechsler, lived next door to the Myers and were firm supporters of the Myers. Because of their support and because they were Jewish, the Wechsler house was also targeted for damage. KKK was spray painted on their house. Nick and Katie were a little bit older than the Myers boys, and Nick was a crossing guard who walked the Myers boys, Stephen and William, to school each day. And we've also added Jonathan Snipes, whose father, Sam, was the Myers attorney and also stood with the Myers at their house to protect them from violence. Keeping in mind that God has created us all in his own image, and that Peter was shown that God shows no partiality, but in every nation whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. So now you know how your church is seeking to redress the harm done by racism in the Levittown community. Thank you.